Hello and welcome to the official podcast of the International Physical Literacy Association, the birthplace of physical literacy, formed by Margaret Whitehead in 2014. The IPLA provides courses and resources and is here to support you on your physical literacy journey. So this podcast is hosted by myself, Kirk Bowyer, and physical literacy researcher Natalie Weir. And we share conversations from across the globe to bring you stories of how physical literacy is shaping lives. Hi, Nat. How are you today?
Hello. Good. Thank you. Yeah. Doesn't matter where you're from. Education, health, sport, community, all different kind of voices. And today we've got the brilliant Trevor Smith. Trevor, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself?
Love to. Hello. Yeah. My name's Trevor. I'm lucky enough to be the vice chair of IPLA. In my day job, I work as a sport, physical activity, physical literacy consultant across a variety of sectors, culture and heritage, EDI, specifically probably relevant to today as a key advocate for physical literacy and active environment design.
So, Trevor, we've had various discussions and all of them are super interesting and things that I've never even heard of before in what you do in terms of physical literacy. Can you explain a little bit about how you consult building developers and on physical literacy and essentially how and where to put these different housing developments and how that might help with people's physical literacy?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's great because it's an exciting, I suppose it's a fairly new approach, really, the work that we're doing with housing developers. And it stems from a very clear observation that if any of us were to drive anywhere, probably in any country, we will find new housing looking pretty much the same wherever you go. And a lot of that is because the planning system, the design system, those that are involved in commissioning those kind of developments, as well as those that are actually physically making it happen, are kind of working to what we feel is quite a stereotypical, quite restrictive blueprint when they're designing and planning the layout of the environment into which houses are put. So our mantra, I've been working really closely with an architect, Andy Mighton, who's with David Morley Architects in London. And we realised we shared a very common view that it doesn't need to be like that. That the place in which people live is critical to them helping to make a positive decision to become active. And often, because we're taking almost a paint by numbers approach to designing these new developments particularly, we're losing the opportunity to really invigorate and energize people and give them the opportunity to be active. So our approach over the last 5 or 6 years now with housing developers has been to encourage them to plan the environment before they put the houses in. So let's create a landscape into which the houses fit, which encourage people to get out, to be active, to choose an active option, to explore a whole variety and range of different activities right under their noses, put it in their way, help people to understand that it can be fun, it can be enjoyable, and there's a way for everybody to be more active. It doesn't have to necessarily manifest itself in fixed play equipment or ball courts with fences around them, any of those things. We can be active anywhere, and actually we all need to be able to find a place that works for us and is contextually relevant to the place in which this particular development sits. So
it's so crucial, Trevor. Have you got any maybe example or two of what that change, that magical change in infrastructure looks like? And what has it meant?
Yeah.
What the change has meant?
I mean, we've been applying the principles of physical literacy without necessarily using the term, and part of that is because when we started this journey back in 2018-19, that physical literacy kind of message and flavour wasn't particularly known. But we were applying those principles with the developers to help them understand that there perhaps is a different way. Too often we find in the planning and development system that the developers are seen as being the bad guys in this piece. too often they're being described as the money grabbers, and they'll do the minimum possible to make the maximum return. And what we're finding, the more and more we get involved in this, is that it probably isn't the developers. Many of the developers, most of them in fact, would like to do something different, more creative, more supportive, and it doesn't need to cost more. So from their bottom line position, it really doesn't make a lot of difference. And the issue is actually the planning system. So one of those examples, right now there's a planning application in the system in Buckinghamshire where we have, with the developer, challenged some of that paint by numbers sort of algorithm-based calculation process, which says that every 50 homes should have a play area, for example. And those play areas will be for different age groups, defined age groups, but need to be accessible. All of these things. There's a kind of, what you end up with the development then is just a patchwork of little spaces surrounded by houses that aren't connected. They're very specific for age groups. So the moment you move into an area that perhaps has a what they call a lap, which is a local area for play, fixed equipment for 3 to 5 year olds with a bow top fence around it and a bench and a bin. The moment you move into that place, it might be relevant for the first 3, 4, 5 years of your life there, but children grow older and that place then becomes redundant. It's no longer relevant to the people who live in those houses. So our approach with this particular development in Buckinghamshire, which I can't name it because it's still in the system, but we've encouraged the developer and the landscape architect to perhaps take a slightly different approach around. This is a 600 home development, which ordinarily would still have dotted little pocket parks and things and playgrounds around it. We've encouraged them to take a view to push back against some of that, because it's not in legislation anywhere. There's no request. It's just a planning system that falls back onto something, to create a central park. So here's a big space in the middle of 600 homes that's connected by green walkways and pathways and various other things, that in turn is connected to an outdoor space, which in turn is connected to the local countryside, the surrounding countryside, which then provides a little oasis in the middle of a housing development for many, many things to happen, all in the same place. And what we're finding with our consultation, the important part about the process is that we're very much advocating for early consultation with the local population, particularly in this development's case, because it's bolted on to a village. 600 new homes coming into a village is going to be potentially scary for the people who are already there. So we're working with the existing community to try and put together a landscape plan and environment which meets their needs, the existing community, as well as perhaps satisfies a very diverse community that will be moving in. Of course, we don't know who they are yet, but we want to be able to provide the opportunities and the spaces where people can develop and grow and mix and meet and explore and be creative and do all of those things together. And that's been really, really interesting process, and it's got an awful lot of support locally, to the extent that the planning application, when it went in, has had very, very few negative comments.
It's fantastic that developers are taking this kind of, that are using you, and is the name of your company SportSmith, isn't it?
That's right.
To actually do it, because I wasn't really aware. I just thought that developers were just trying to get as many houses on as small piece of land as they possibly could and just stuff a park there. Now here's the thing: I've got a little challenge for you, Nat, because I was thinking about this. Because if I didn't do what I did, one of my dreams would be to build roller coasters. Okay, but so I think this fits in nicely with this. Okay, because Nat, here we go. We're gonna go with you first.
Yeah. Go on.
If you're going to build a housing development, what would you put? How would you go about designing it? What would you put in it? What would you put near it? Where would you put it? All that kind of stuff that would encourage physical literacy.
Less corners. It's extremely irritating when you're either with children, without children, out for a run, out for a walk, scootering, whatever you're doing, and you come up constant corners all the time. You can't see round them, whether it's a small street or a busy street. So less sharp corners, more thinking about crossing points, and like Trevor said about the connectivity of places. So, for example, I've got 3 nice green spaces around me. Getting to one of them is so difficult that we really rarely go there, even though it's the nearest one, because actually the urban landscape around it is, you've got sharp corners, you've got in one point the narrowest road possible that you can barely fit my energetic 4-year-old down, let alone me on the outside of her. So yeah, size of pavements, the way it's cornered is probably my main thing that I see. It's that urban landscape. So what we know is that children aren't being able to access the little patches of space outside their house unless they might be lucky enough to have a little cul-de-sac where they can feel safe. So it's that access of that urban space. How do we make that more friendly? So I create little urban challenges for our school trip, for example. So I've used chalk to colour in the drains on the way. And we have what we call a drain game, where depending on the shape and size of the drain, if it's a round one, we spin. If it's a big one, we jump over. Do you know what I mean? If it's a small square one, then we do flamingo balance. So actually, it's about how do we use what is there, whether it's lamp posts and the infrastructure to create play and fun as we're going along it, safely and appropriately. So that's something that sticks out. I mean, Trevor, what do you think? What sticks out as you as something that would make the big change?
And definitely the whole street plan, street layout I guess is point number one. And we talk about a thing called play on the way, which isn't our phrase, it's a general thing. So let's make the whole landscape, let's make every interaction with the space outside our house something that can be playful. And that idea around drains is ideal, and there are all sorts of digital applications that will allow that kind of thing to happen as well. So there's a reason to go out, and when you do go out, you choose the active option rather than jump straight into a car, for example. And I think so there's a lot around how we build our streets and our houses and the spaces around the houses.
What about car parking? What about car parking?
The first thing you see, most of us, when we step outside of our house, probably the first thing we see is a car or our car. It's the first thing we see. So there's already that trigger that says, oh, okay, I need to do X, Y, Z, go to A, B, C. The first thing we're going to do is click the key and we're going to jump into the car. So, and that's not always easy to design out. One of the consequences we see in many developments is people put the parking at the back. So the house fronts onto the road, the parking's at the back. Well, then the front door never gets used. So people are in and out of the back door, and the house isn't designed that way because you've got to navigate the garden to get in, and a whole bunch of things around the way we actually physically design the building. But by putting physical activity in your way, you have very little choice. On the broader scale, one of the philosophies, principles that we kind of refer to but don't necessarily apply is a thing called plead, which is an international kind of concept. It was developed by some academics in Canada. One of those one of those principles is what they call movement intersections. And this is the idea that says if you're in a place, perhaps walking to work, cycling to work, whatever it might be, as you are making that journey, you are seeing activity happening because there's many different things in that same space. So you're walking across a park or around a park, and there may be children picnicking with their families. There may be youngsters having a ball game or playing frisbee or doing whatever it might be. There may be some really specific activity going on in a dedicated sports facility. But the very fact that people are encouraged to walk through or around or past that, it's what Andy Myton calls see it, do it. And there's just that trigger in all of us where we're watching somebody else do something, we think, well, I could do that. And it gives us that kind of nod, that confidence to have a go. So for us, this whole mantra is about not being overly specific in what a space is used for. It's more about opening up the opportunity for people to make their own decision about how they're going to use it.
Check with Kurt. So I'm just, sorry to interrupt, Trevor, I was just curious, Kurt, were you actually not intending to suggest roller coasters then, or You didn't actually want roller coasters, did
Well,
you?
what's interesting on that, and we were doing consultation with young people in Bedfordshire around what they would like to see from an ideal public park. And roller coasters featured quite heavily
There they
when
go.
we're into that piece. And of course, we need to sort of perhaps manage expectations a little bit on those things. Unicorns and roller coasters featured very heavily.
Hmm.
What was interesting was when we flipped that narrative into what do you want to get from your public space, we started to get some really thoughtful and insightful kind of feedback. One little girl particularly who just, and she wrote, it's the standard post-it note kind of thing, and it just said, I want to be brave. And that for us resonate, that kind of hits every kind of tingly nerve ending you'd ever want to see, because what they're asking for is a space where they can go and be creative, can explore, can do all of those things and get confidence from being that, feel that I can improve, try something without being laughed at, all of those things when we get her to explain it. So I think that, yeah, roller coaster's fine.
What I want to get to is your definition of what physical literacy is, but I'm only going to give you I'm going to give you up to 30 seconds. Are you ready? Go.
Okay, so everything that we do on the active environment thing is founded on Margaret's definition of physical literacy. So what we're looking to do is to provide places that give people the confidence, that give people the motivation, that give them the signs that tell them that that space is for them. Too often, you stick a Mooga in a place, a multi-use games area, and put floodlights on it and a fence around it, it becomes a bit of territory that becomes owned by certain sets of people. Those people love it, but it's not universally available. So our whole mantra is very much driven by Margaret's definition, the IPLA definition, but we're using the Sport England consensus definition in a more simplified form when we're dealing with developers. So this is about giving everybody the positive relationship with moving and with being active, and our landscape needs to make that happen. So those are the principles that we use.
Okay, Joe. That I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is that was incredible. The bad news is that was way longer than 30 seconds.
Well, it might have been.
So
you need to put a timer in the window.
What I want to get on to next is your trip to Qatar that you did recently, and what you were doing in Qatar, and how people can get involved in this to find out. We're not going to go to Qatar, but it's an interesting concept of what you were doing, because you were kind of doing these kind of little tests to see, okay, you may do this and you may enjoy doing this. For example, you're good at this, you may enjoy doing this. Can you just explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the gallery at the Qatar Olympic and Sport Museum is basically founded on, if you like, the core principle of Olympism. It's an Olympic gallery. It references de Coubertin's vision for Olympism, which is not just about the elite, the best being the best. It's about the way sport and physical activity can contribute to everybody's lives and in turn make the world a better place if it's connecting with a whole raft of other things. And we've used physical literacy as the underpinning principle for an interactive gallery which has 18 different activities in it, all of which come together under 5 core competency areas. And the basic principle is visitors will engage with those interactives, all of which are super accessible, and in no way challenging for an 80-year-old as opposed or a toddler. So universally accessible. And at the end of their time in that gallery, they can then get a readout, a profile, which will pull together their comparative performances, and comparative by age and by gender, so long as they've given us that information, which then suggests activities and sports which we think they might find enjoyable or give them meaning. So it's not a talent identification thing. Absolutely never was, partly because we can't be that scientific in the data that we're collecting. It's indicative. But what it has been doing, and we've shown that it's been doing, is it's helping people feel more confident. It's giving them the nudge into trying an activity that they might not have thought of before. The real beauty of the whole system is that when visitors leave, they can connect to an app, which we've also put in place for the museum, which will show them the clubs, the facilities, the places, the other people who are involved in those activities. So they can download an app and off they go. They can be chatting to people. Is anybody want to play tennis this weekend? Whatever else it might be. So through it, what we're trying to do is give people the positive nudges to things which we think they will enjoy, and that's our language. We think you'll enjoy playing table tennis because your footwork is comparatively good, your hand-eye coordination is comparatively good, so you might enjoy that. And that way,
do you know why I find that really interesting, Trevor? So Kirk and I were having this discussion before about how your own journey with movement and physical activity changes. So previous runner competed. At this point where I'm not competing to run like as fast as I can be, I need to find something else. So I was having this conversation with my husband. Do you think I'd be really good at table tennis? Or do you think I'd like badminton? Or what can I go and do? Or I definitely wouldn't want to go to the gym and start doing a spinning class or some kind of Zumba with loads of other people. Well, no. And so actually, like, what as a nearly 40-year-old lady am I going to find that I'm going to find fun, maybe be reasonably good at? How do I answer that? And what's there in my local area? So I think that's one of the things there's a real need for, and kind of matching what else is out there. What else is out there for me, outside of maybe what I've done before in my life.
And I think the real big thing particularly about the app side of things in the museum is the connectivity. This is the social part of this. So immediately what you're doing by joining on the app and setting up your profile is that you're giving people the opportunity to connect with other people who are of the same motivation, same ability. Bit by bit with the museum, the ongoing work I'm involved in there is in creating programs and initiatives to help facilitate that step from a museum experience into a real life physical activity experience. So we need to somehow bridge that little gap, because there's still any number of reasons why we might choose not to do a thing, and probably the reason is confidence. The first thing is, and so what we hope with our museum messaging is we're giving people a positive feedback which says, why don't you try it? Because actually you might quite enjoy it. Not we think you're good at it, but we think you might like to try it.
I think there's a challenge in when I used to work for British Orienteering, and we'd run sessions that would be particularly for, or it would be thought that it was particularly for this kind of person. And actually, if we want that age of person, what are they going to do with their young children while they come out and do orienteering for 3 hours? And how do you bring together different people, like in family groups, or that can be a barrier and an enabler in what we're doing that's accessible and motivational for like more than one individual. It's an interesting challenge.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, a brilliant short story from the museum, which was a family teacher who's based in Qatar, and her parents who were coming through the museum, parents probably 70s, 80s, coming through the museum, working through all the activities together. What they discovered, the mother and father together, were that both of their profiles suggested they might enjoy paddle sports. And daughter just jumped up and clapped her hand. She said, right, that's what we're going to do at the weekend. So they took themselves off to a dragon boating thing which she knew about, and said, right, let's try that. And then, go and hire a kayak or do something in some of those situations. So just that little push gave those people a reason to go and try a thing, because the museum had told them you might enjoy it. Not you'll be good, but you'll enjoy it. And and that's happening all over the place.
I'm curious of what are the activities that you have to do that actually form the evaluation of what you might enjoy. What do you have to do in the museum?
I'll give you a couple of examples. So one we call quick jump, which is literally a force plate. If we're using technical language, it's a light up disc on the floor. You pop your feet on either side of a line, dividing line. Your challenge over 30 seconds is as many 2-footed jumps as you can make.
Okay. Now,
so that's a speed jump.
So it's jumping.
It's that.
Okay.
If you're in your 90s, you can just bend your knees and it will still notice you moving.
Okay, very good. All right, okay.
The gameplay.
So it's as many jumps as you can in a certain amount of time.
30 seconds. Yeah.
Okay.
The gameplay, it's set in a park. So we're using an active environment. There's a park, there's a marketplace, there's a beach. there's a cityscape, a whole raft of different environments. So these games are designed that way. So as you're jumping, the exciting bit is that you're looking at a graphic of a fountain in a park, and as you jump in, the water starts coming up. The fountains, the water starts shooting. So the faster you jump, the more water is coming up through the jets. So what you're doing is in itself is having an impact. There's a hand cycle one where you're cycling on a path through one of the main parks in Doha. The balance thing is you're on a paddleboard and you're navigating cones across the Pearl, which is one of the big residential developments with water on the water side. So it's all creating. There's a wave jump. My favourite wave jump. 4 different stations, 4 different people. You're looking out across the beach at a well-known building in Doha, and the waves are coming down across the screen and onto the floor. You jump to keep your feet dry. Imagine, families do it. They hold hands and they jump together. Okay. But what we're actually recording is the timing, how many successful jumps before you get your feet wet, but also subliminally a vertical jump height, because the amount of time you spend in the air, you get more points. The longer you're in the air, the more points you get. Okay. So all of those are things that and they're fun, and some team interactive games, throwing a ball around to from one place to another and putting it in another hopper. Just digital stuff, but physical stuff. But they're games. They're not connected to sport. It's not a penalty. It's not a basketball hoop shoot or a penalty competition or anything.
And it sounds fun too.
It's great fun.
Do you think the IPLA has the budget, Mr. Vice Chairman, to send me and Nat out so we can have a little go?
Yeah, I joined the queue, I think. Although, to be fair, some have already been out there. We were out there. We were lucky enough to be involved in a conference out there, the first physical literacy conference in Qatar back in 22 before the World Cup. It's a great place to see, and something that I definitely. And some of the other Olympic museums across the country across the world are thinking about similar kind of things. So that's very gratifying.
But we can learn from the principles of those approaches if we haven't got, the funding to get every one of those lovely stations in every GP surgery up and down the country.
It doesn't need to be electronic. You can do these things.
How are we asking those questions? How are we prompting those considerations or thoughts, or even matching a person to the menu of opportunities? So some work I've been doing recently is trying to understand, what's out there in an area. So what the green space is, what are the structured activities, what's happening at the leisure centre, what are the voluntary sports groups in the area. And because there's a lot of, I think it's really important that we're trying to, people even that I've lived in a certain area, I might not know of something happening 1 mile down the road. So it's like, how are we, connecting and building awareness? So it's really important that there are some ways, even if it doesn't involve beautiful tech, that we're asking those questions, connecting people to those answers. And I think in the built environment, that's such a good opportunity to.
Let me take that back to that starting point then, because I think, and that's part of the kind of the conversations we're having with developers now, and we're trying to nudge planners and the local authority. Leisure services often are people who are quite fixed in their ways on this, play teams and things. And what we're starting to suggest to them is that, one development particularly, if you add up the capital cost of all these laps and leaps and leaps, these different dotted playgrounds, it comes to about £2 million capital cost for the developer. And we're suggesting that maybe if we provided open, free space without fixed equipment, £2 million would probably pay for 2 or 3 activators to be resident in that development, doing different activities on a bit of green space at different times of the day for different audiences, to explore all of those things, to give people opportunity and variety of activity and all of those things. Why do we need fixed equipment that is, and I'm not saying they're not valuable, because they do serve a purpose, but if we're talking about it in physical literacy terms, in physical sort of core skill development terms, they're probably quite limited. They are quite limited. So why don't we just flip that narrative a little bit and start giving people the person-to-person experience alongside some of that fixed equipment? It gives people more choice, it gives people more creativity, it gives people more variety, and it helps people perhaps discover those activities in a way that they wouldn't have done, because they would normally think they've got to go to a badminton court to learn to play badminton. Well, they don't. You don't need to be there.
So, for example, the amount of times I've seen outdoor gyms where councils or whoever it is responsible just plonk them in a park. I don't think I've ever seen anyone use one. Like, seriously, I've seen kids on them.
With like no resistance. So you go on and you're like, doodle, doodle, or your legs are like, doodle, doodle, yeah.
What is the point? I don't understand where this has come from, and they keep popping up. It's crazy, but
outdoor gyms serve a purpose for some people some of the time. It's the same as the swings and roundabouts and the springy chicken. They serve a purpose for some people some of the time. So I'm not gonna. Well, I wouldn't diss them completely. But
really? I've never seen anyone use them. I honestly never seen anyone use them.
If you're 6'2", they're no good, because you can't fit in them.
Okay.
For one thing. If you're a more of a performance athlete, you want to train, the weight's not enough to give you any kind of value. So again, it predetermines what you do.
Yeah.
Predetermines how you use a thing, and it kind of also predetermines who can use it. And I think so. This is our piece. Is we're saying we maybe need to challenge some of that and start thinking about the individuality of the potential user, and then start creating an environment that allows that experimentation and creativity and choice in a way that what the traditional development provides doesn't do.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. It's a really great chat today. Really insightful, interesting things that I've never really heard before in relation to physical literacy. So thank you very much, Trevor. It's been fantastic. Thanks also to Nat, my co-host. And just a reminder to everybody that the International Physical Literacy Association has a great website. There's some great courses. You can become a member. And, it's just a great place to really enhance your knowledge of physical literacy, and it will be life-changing if you do so. So yeah, that's all from us today in this episode. Thank you very much.